Hi there, this is Joy KahNah, and today I'm going to speak about my year without my phone, without social media, and without television, and how that influenced my life and where I stand today. I wanted to begin by sort of defining what I mean. I haven't had a TV for a long time. In 2013, I went into the Peace Corps. During that time, I didn't even have electricity. So that's when I really cut off from TV. And basically ever since then, I haven't owned a TV or watched TV regularly. When I say no TV, I don't mean that I was never exposed to a TV, but I would say hardly ever, probably only about 4 or 5 times during the year. So I may have seen TV once for sure while waiting in a doctor's office and a couple times when visiting other people. That doesn't mean that I didn't watch anything. During the year, I did watch YouTube, sometimes a lot of YouTube. I don't watch news on YouTube or TV related things, but I did have the ability to sort of Google, things or YouTube topics and learn about them visually. Before the experiment, I would occasionally check Instagram, but I sort of didn't really know how to use it, and I didn't ever post anything because I didn't know how to use it. But I had technically a profile. I would use it to view other people. But before this experiment started, I was very active on Facebook. It's hard to say how much time I was spending on Facebook, but I'm sure some days it was many hours. I used the Messenger feature a lot to talk to other people. I was admin actually for some huge groups. I mean, some groups, a couple different groups of over 30,000 people. So I was like constantly reading posts, approving of posts. So I used Facebook quite a bit, and I say it's just been a year. I'm filming this on April 4th of 2018. It was April 3rd of 2017 that I posted engagement photos, and after that, I realized how much of a burden Facebook can actually be, just with all the comments and everything, and I started to really want to distance myself. So when I say that I didn't use any social media, it's not 100% true. I mean, I never went on there reading posts for entertainment or anything, but I did log into my Facebook a couple times throughout the year. Once when I needed a photo for my documentary, I needed a photo of my childhood, and I didn't have any except on Facebook, so I had to log in to download that. And once or twice to contact people or to get their contact information, like to get an email address for somebody and then to get a mailing address for somebody, because the only way that I had to contact them was through Facebook. But other than that, I have a phone. I had an active phone the whole time, an iPhone, and yeah, pretty much I didn't use it. So I guess to specify, I would keep my phone turned off for about a month at a time. That doesn't mean I didn't have it with me ever, though. I would still take my phone with me when I left the house, especially if I left the house alone. If I was with somebody else, I wouldn't even bring it. But when I brought my phone, I didn't turn it on. So I just had my phone off, but it gave me peace of mind to know, okay, if I get in a car accident or something like that, then I have my phone with me. When traveling longer distances where people were concerned about me on an airplane, things like that, I did keep my phone on. Of course, I got tons of messages and things like that, and I did a couple times throughout the year respond to some from people who were really concerned about me or things like that. I didn't say, oh, I'm going to do an experiment where I give up all these things for years. I was just sort of trusting my intuition and what felt right and what felt good to me for how to live my life, and I realized, yeah, I don't feel good after scrolling through my phone for a long time or being glued to that screen. Before this experiment, sometimes it's like I would start texting someone in the morning, and especially for me, because like as a job, I am a psychic, and so people would all the time would just text message me and be like, oh, I just have one question and can you just answer it like really quick and stuff. And some days I was like, okay, yeah, okay, why not? I have time. But other days there's 50 people doing that, and I would just get so frustrated, and I would start to maybe sit down at breakfast and like, okay, well, I'll just go through and answer people's questions like really quick, and the next thing I knew it was 6 hours later, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon or something, and it's like, oh my gosh, I just wasted my entire day responding to people's questions. So if I wasn't a psychic for a living, I don't really know that I would have done this. I think it was largely motivated by being psychic, and when you are psychic, you have to put up a lot stronger boundaries, and you have to teach people how to communicate with you and when and where to communicate with you. I did check email on my computer because I own an online business. I eventually got down to only checking my business email, and even if I told family and friends, okay, if you have something really important, then contact me through my business email. But I eventually got down to even just checking email 1 time per day, and I would spend a couple hours depending on how much I had, but just 1 time per day. And I would not check it again. I usually checked it in the morning, and at first I had anxiety in the evenings, like, oh my gosh, what if somebody has something really important and they can't wait 24 hours. And then I just kind of realized, you know what, there's other people in the world who can help everybody, and it doesn't have to be me. And also almost anything can wait 24 hours. I found a lot of peace in this year without these things. Eliminating TV really, really makes you feel good. I know some people are worried, oh, well, if I don't watch the news or whatever, then I won't know what's going on. I mean, the news doesn't really provide that much information. The news doesn't provide that much detail. If you really think about it, it's just highlights and just shocking things. And the news doesn't really report on what's really going on in the world for the most part. There were a couple times where I didn't find out about things. For my work, I spend a lot of time in meditation. I mean, some days I'm in a meditative state for definitely 6 to 8 hours. There were a couple of things that I didn't know about. One was a hurricane, and I had friends and family that lived there, and I didn't know about it because I didn't have my phone on, right? And I wasn't on social media, and I wasn't watching the news. Man, you know what? Everything was fine. Like, everything turned out fine. Another incident that I didn't know about, this is more of a positive example, that I didn't find out about until afterwards, was the Las Vegas shooting. And I think I found out 24 hours after it happened. But I think if I would have been on social media, I probably would have found out an hour after it happened. But what was really interesting is that that day I noticed that people around me were really stressed, agitated, fearful, but I wasn't. And it took me a while to realize that, why. Like, in that case, I feel like I saved myself so much trauma because I just simply wasn't exposed to the event. And then when you don't watch the news and you're not exposed to news events, eventually you will find out. And if you don't, then it probably wasn't that important anyway. But eventually you will find out, and I think that one thing I learned is that my reactions were more genuine and more profound because I didn't have preconceived notions, and I was able to witness things that were going on with a clear head. During this year, I feel like I gained mental freedom because I was no longer having my views shaped by what other people were saying on social media. And I was no longer having ideas or perspectives force-fed to me, right? That's what happens on television. I honestly don't know if I will ever be able to go back to social media or if I'll ever be able to go back to being glued to my phone, because it is such a good feeling to be able to not have drama. I mean, I know there's people out there who really like drama, but I'm not one of those people. If I can choose between having a drama-filled, stress-filled day or having a day of calmness and serenity, peace, and love, I'm going to choose calmness, serenity, peace, and love. And that's a lot of what I had. I'm not saying that giving up social media or my phone, that it fixed everything in my life. I mean, in some cases, I had to face a lot more. I wasn't able to escape by focusing on other people's emotions or opinions. I had to just face mine. But what I will say is that I was so much less stressed and there was so much less drama. And what happens is that when you're not plugged in right away, is that often situations resolve themselves before you have a chance to get involved, right? And that was the case for a lot of family dramas and things like that, because people realized, okay, well, she's not going to respond right away and stuff. I can't call her and vent to her, you know, my family. But I saw them a lot in person and things like that, and so they would tell me about things that happened. And I would often ask, oh, what was your first response after that? And they'd say, oh, everybody was in chaos arguing and stuff like that. And then I'd say, oh, how did it turn out? And they would say, oh, you know, everything's fine now. Everybody made up. So it was like, it just saved me like so much drama. And I know some people might think that this is a really selfish choice, and that's a valid opinion. I think that for somebody who is really highly sensitive, or an empath, or let alone somebody who is genuinely psychic, I mean, the world is overstimulating, and the last thing that you need to do is stimulate yourself more by going on social media or being glued to a phone. And even just the electromagnetic frequencies themselves are not necessarily proven to be healthy for our bodies or minds, to say the very least. I found myself so much less reliant on technology that sometimes I would even just unplug the router at home and stuff like that and just be totally technology free. I stayed technology free in my bedroom pretty much the whole year. There was a couple times that I let myself sort of indulge because it was a holiday or something, and fall asleep like watching a movie in bed or something. But for the most part, I did a lot more reading. I guess, come to think of it, I read through quite a lot of books just in my reading before bed. I mean, probably a book a week or a book every couple weeks, depending on how long it is. So I learned a lot of information that way. And it didn't feel restrictive, because I always had the choice to use computer if I wanted to know about something. And what's interesting, though, is the computer is very different than the phone. Your computer, you're not necessarily going to carry it with you everywhere you go, right? So it has to be more of a conscious choice. Okay, I'm going to open up my laptop or go to my desktop computer, and I'm going to do this specific task. And it's a lot different than the phone, which is almost like an extension of your body, and it can become just your right hand or whatever. And you don't even make the conscious choice with your phone sometimes before you start scrolling and stuff. One thing that I want to say about social media and getting off of social media is that I believe that it helped not only my mental health, but I believe that it helped my physical health a lot. One thing that I achieved in this year that I never thought I ever would was pretty much just totally breaking any reliance on makeup or hair products. Or I just found when I wasn't looking at like doctored images of other women all the time, that I became so much more comfortable with myself. And even today, it was like such a burden to do my hair and makeup, because since I wasn't ever posting anything on social media, I never needed to like make a special effort to look a certain way. Because when you're on social media all the time, right, like if you're gonna go out with friends or something like that, you gotta make sure that you look awesome, because you know that all those friends are gonna take a photo, right? And then they're going to put it online. And so everybody's going to see you. Well, guess what? If all your social media accounts are deactivated, you care a lot less, because it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't mean that photos of you are not going to end up there, but you're never going to see them. So, and most other people aren't going to see them either, because nobody can tag your name or whatever, right? So I don't know, like I just felt so much more comfortable about my body. And I used to have such body image issues. I mean, I would just think all the time like, oh, if I'm going to be having a photo like this, how am I going to stand, right? So that my body looks the best, or stuff like that. Like it would cause me so much stress. What are people going to think about 5'1"? So when you're this height, if you gain even 1 pound, it really shows up like in your face and in your body. Like it's just crazy. And so I would be like, oh my gosh, I think I gained 1 or 2 pounds. Like it's going to look to other people like I gained 10 pounds or something. What are they going to think? Like I would just drive myself crazy with those appearance related things. And then this year helped me so much. I mean, I don't know if this is like a good thing or not, but again, I'm sort of self-employed, so I think it is what it is, but I found that I just wore things that I was comfortable in. So before, when I was constantly on social media, I kept a lot of clothes just because I knew I needed like variety, because you can't be seen wearing the same thing all the time. So I had tons of clothes in my closet, and that was stressful too. Like, things were always falling off the hangers, and I didn't even like how a lot of it looked on me, but I would keep it because it was like, it's more important to be wearing something different than it is to be wearing something that I'm comfortable in. It was all completely because of just social media and texting and stuff, because, you know, girls always sending the pictures of themselves to each other and stuff like that. And all of that was gone, right? So just knowing, wow, like, nobody's gonna see what I look like. One of the first things I did was just cut off all my hair. My hair is like all grown back now. It's like, wow, like, I don't have to post a photo of this. I don't have to come up with a justification. Otherwise, I would have had to come up with a justification. Like, I would have had to post a photo of myself and been like, yeah, like, I want a cooler haircut for summer, you know, so I don't feel the heat. Or I would have had to somehow justify it. Like, when you're constantly plugged into social media, but there's like a felt pressure to justify every single decision that you make. And that's not a good feeling, right? That's not a good feeling. And I was like, well, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to explain to people why I am the way I am. I don't have to explain to anybody why I'm eating what I'm eating, or why I cut my hair, or I don't have to make apologies that my makeup's not done, and literally my makeup was never done, ever. And it was such a good feeling. But of course I know sometimes, oh, I might embarrass like family or friends or something if I just went to something just totally all natural. But like, I'm so moving in that direction. That would have never happened. That would have never, ever, ever, ever happened if I did not give up texting and social media and television, because I think comparison is really unhealthy, but I also think that that's part of our human brains, not our soul, not our consciousness, but that's part of our human brains. Like, do we compare ourselves to others to get ideas? And going without the television and without social media and without texting and stuff, I lost a lot of that comparison. Like, I was able to just look at me and like, sure, yeah, maybe compare like where I'm at now with my fitness or things like that to where I used to be, but I was no longer comparing myself to who knows what, you know, supermodel that's been airbrushed 1,000 times and stuff like that. And I became a lot more comfortable with my body. I also was able to achieve a lot more health-related goals, including becoming a plant-based vegan and just really disciplining my diet. I had tried to do that a number of times, and I was never able to do it. And I think it's because I was constantly bombarded with articles, like advertisements is really what they are, like on social media and stuff, that would say like 18 benefits to drinking milk and stuff, and it would like make my mind crazy. But without like all the advertisements, I was just like, oh, wow, yeah, okay. Well, these are things that make my body feel good, and I was able to just make huge improvements in my diet. I even adopted an OMAD diet, which is like basically 22 hours a day of fasting and just eating one giant meal a day. It was so good to make that life change and not have to tell anybody. Of course, the people that are in my immediate environment, they know, the people that I see every day, but those people accept me for who I am anyway. But it was such a good feeling to not have to like go through and take pictures of all my food because I have to prove to social media why I'm doing this and validate it to other people. My psychic abilities improved immensely throughout this year, and I don't know if that's, I'm sure it's related somehow. I don't know how, like, I can't say why that happened entirely, but I definitely had a clearer mind, and I think the fasting was a part of that. There's no way I could have done that if I was tied to my phone. I would have been too tempted. With friends and stuff texting photos, look at my breakfast and stuff, I would have been like, oh, dang, like, I really want breakfast. But without all that, and just with just silence and clarity, I was able to make that transition very quickly. I think that I wouldn't have been able to do it with social media, especially, and with television. I mean, television to me is just a no-brainer. Watching television is not good for anybody's health, and yeah, I think it puts our mind in an altered state, an alpha state, and I don't think that that's helpful for our progress as a soul. I don't think that I would have been able to make these life changes if I was plugged into social media, because I think people would have criticized it. People would have said things like, how dare you think that you can just eat one meal a day? What is this? Is this an eating disorder? Or do you know the dangers of veganism? Are you getting enough protein and stuff? And when you're a highly sensitive person like I am, that stuff impacts you. And what I found is I was just able to make decisions for myself. You might think that you're making your own decisions all the time and you're on social media and watching television, and maybe you are, but most likely you're being influenced by what you're watching and what you're reading more than what you realize. Another thing that I was able to do was save thousands of dollars. Again, I know that I couldn't have done that if I was watching TV all the time or exposed to advertisements all the time. There's just too much. Like, there's just too much pressure in the society. Like, you have to buy this, you have to have this. And when you're not on social media and you're not checking your phone, you don't even know what it even is. Like, I got, for Christmas, someone gave me an Instant Pot, right? And I was like, oh, wow, this is, like, cool. When I looked through what it was, I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I need for the type of food that I cook. But that was the first time that I ever had seen or heard of an Instant Pot. Whereas I probably would have felt like I had to buy one for myself if I had been plugged into social media. And that's just one example of one of the many things that I would have felt like I had to buy for myself if I was exposed to advertisements all the time. But since I wasn't, I just watched my savings account just increase because the only things that I was buying were the things that I needed. If I was going about my day and it's like, oh, I need this tool that I don't have, like I really need it to get this task done, then I'll buy it. But I was never impulse buying anything. I was never thinking, seeing some chick, you know, on social media with a certain shirt or something and thinking, oh my God, that's cute, let me go out to the mall and buy one that looks like that. That never happened. During half the year, I didn't even have like a proper purse, and I literally didn't care. I just bought so much less stuff. I hardly bought anything, I would say. Of course, I invested a lot of money in food and diet. I believe in wholesome, highly nutritious foods. But when it comes to material things, I only bought what I needed the whole year. And I think my mental health was much better. I don't think I'll ever go back to social media. At the beginning of the year, I thought, especially because I run an online business, I was like, oh, if I go off Facebook or I go off social media, my business is going to suffer. That did not happen. In fact, during the year, I was able to consistently raise my prices without losing any clients at all. Because what did happen is the impulse social media people did drop away. And what I found out was that that's pretty much the best thing to ever happen to my business, because those people were not seriously interested in my services anyway. And they were the people that were always signing up when I had coupons or sales or things like that, but then they were just never valuing the product. And guess what? I didn't offer any coupons or sales during the year, because that's something that you do on social media, and I didn't have social media. I just kept my prices regular, and that worked great. Like, it's so crazy. Like, we tell ourselves that we need these things. Something bad will happen if we're not constantly in correspondence with our friends and family on our phone and stuff like that. Nothing bad happened. Nothing bad happened. And you know, we justify all these reasons why we continue to engage with technologies that are harming us. And I'm not saying that social media, for example, is harming everyone, but it was harming me. It was taking up a lot of time. I wasn't achieving my goals because I was spending a lot of time on social media. It was causing me, more than anything else, it was causing me enormous stress and forcing myself to feel like I had to respond to every phone call, every text message, and every message I was getting on Facebook Messenger. It made my life a living hell. Taking the pressure off and saying, you know what, I'm actually just going to remove myself from this, and not only am I not going to reply to everyone, I'm not going to reply to anyone. That is the best feeling in the world. Like, that's literally the best feeling in the world. And just trusting that if somebody needs to get a hold of me, they will do it in the one way that I allow, which is, you know, at this email address. And there were times where I felt like, okay, maybe I'm being too mean, but guess what? People contacted me there, and it was a lot simpler. So instead of having 5 different things to check, I just had one. that was wonderful. Like, it's just so wonderful. Now, you might be wondering, well, what if people really did need to get a hold of you? What did you do for that? And what I did for that is I just gave people that were really close to me the phone number of my fiance at the time, now my husband, and I just said, if you really need to get a hold of me, contact him. And he is not glued to his phone either, for the same reasons that I'm not, but he checks his phone, you know, hourly or whatever. And during the couple times that people really needed to get a hold of me, they contacted him and, you know, we were able to get in touch. But what's interesting is that didn't happen very many times. That might have happened 2 or 3 times the whole year. I suspect at some point in time I will have a social media presence, but it won't be me that's behind that presence. And in the past I have had social media interns and stuff posting for me because I've always felt so terrible after going on social media. Just such a heavy weight. I think, again, if you are an empath or highly sensitive person and you go on to whatever social media platform, you're exposed to the energy of every single person whose picture you see and every single person who wrote a post. And that's a lot. People don't think of it as being the same thing as walking into a subway station, which most empaths would avoid like the Black Plague, but it's the same thing. You absorb all that energy if you're very highly sensitive, which I am, and it was just so good to just not be exposed to that. I just could not stress it enough. There were times during the year that I felt guilt or shame, especially during holidays and things like that, to not be wishing everybody a happy birthday and things like that. But at the end of the day, it was totally worth it. And I have found so much peace. It's amazing. Like, I have found peace and serenity in a way that I never ever thought could have even hoped for a year ago. Now that I've unplugged, I don't want to plug back into the madness. I don't want to plug back into the drama. Now that I've, you know, cultivated my mind to be free and think for itself, I don't want to be influenced by whatever so happens to be out there anymore. And if you're somebody who really feels burdened by the pressure to go on social media and you go on it only because it is an expectation, I definitely encourage you to do this. I don't think it's healthy to be super militant. Like I said, I logged in a couple times when I really need to get a person's email address or a picture that I didn't have anywhere else. You have to afford yourself those opportunities. Removing yourself from these things is okay. You'll be okay, and you'll probably find that your life improves. As for television, I don't see why anybody would need that. Like, you will save so much money by not having cable and just not even buying a TV. For a phone, I know that giving up the phone is not reasonable for most people, and I totally understand and respect that, especially if you're a parent. I think it would be irresponsible to give up your phone. But if you are somebody like me, you're probably not, like, because there's not that many like self-employed psychics walking around that run online businesses. But if you are one of those, don't pressure yourself to have to check your phone all the time. You know, maybe with phone, I think for most people they do need to check it, but maybe try just one specific time every day or 2 times per day, and maybe limit the amount of time. You know, you can listen to all your voicemails and respond to text messages in probably 20 or 30 minutes, right? So maybe make it 30 minutes at your lunch break and 30 minutes in the evening, and that's it. Even just limiting phone time to just turning off your phone 2 or 3 hours before bed or something, it will improve your sleep so much. Oh, I forgot to mention that. This is one of the biggest things that came of this year. Before this year started, I was trapped in this sleep cycle that I couldn't get out of, and it was madness. Like, I would never be able to fall asleep before 3 in the morning, and I could not get out of it. And I really think it was because of looking at my phone. That's all I can figure. But after a year later, my sleep schedule is just locked in. Like 9 o'clock, I get tired and wake up at 7. And that's coming from a person who doesn't have to be awake at any specific time. Like, I could sleep as long as I wanted. I believe that it's because of giving up my phone and social media. I'm no longer scrolling through social media before I go to bed. And instead, I'm reading books. And, you know, a lot of times I read 5 or 10 pages and then I'm asleep because it's not as stimulating. So it really helped regulate my sleep. I was able to save a lot of money. I was able to really distill down which of my relationships in my life were genuine and which were just likes and comments. And I just feel a sense of serenity and peace that I have never felt before, and I feel more in control of my life. I'm really glad that I did this, and I'm going to keep doing it. As much as like the world will tell you that you have to be connected to your phone all the time, you really don't. I mean, for the vast majority of time on this planet, people found out everything they needed to know, and through their connections with others, in-person interactions, people for thousands of years on this planet, people have formed relationships in person and had their important conversations in person, and that is still possible, and I think it might even be healthier. I could go on forever, but those are the main things that I wanted to share, and I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please stop by the channel sometime again soon. So thank you for watching, and namaste. Bye.